So slightly breaking from the first two sessions, right? So I've tried to keep this more user-centric in terms that, what are the problems that user faces when they come to a streaming app. It could be music or, video. But from a lens of cold start, right? What is the first thing that comes to everyone's mind is the analogy from cold start is obviously associated with vehicles, right? So one example that I take all the time is about Formula One, right? So if you have seen Formula One, when a car is being started, there's so many people working on the car at the same time, right? So why do they do that? Because they need to ensure that the engine is at the right temperature, the tires at the right temperature, the engine has the right pressure in place. You have, machines working to probably create the right set of environment for the car to work optimally, right? So similar to that, right? So when we talk about recommendations, be it like there are n number of ways where we can recommend or create recommendations, but obviously all of those systems and technologies or ML models, so to say, has certain limitations where we say that we need certain information about the user where we are confident enough to recommend certain bits or bits of content to that user, right? So so with that context, I'll probably start the session. So again, like I've broken down into four, 5 buckets today, right? So firstly, we'll talk about what do we mean by cold start personalization, what are the existing solutions in the market, and I've tried to create a framework of sorts of what are the different data points that are available when a user is installing an app. I've tried to keep it more generic because I didn't want to specifically talk about the video case, because I also want to have that context of music in mind. Then I've created a sample journey in terms of how a user would eventually evolve in terms of recommendations on the app, right? So first things first, what is cold start problem? So from a user perspective, whenever user installs the app, they expect a certain relevance to them when they land on the home page, right? That is an expectation that is not just specific to streaming apps, but like if you look at food delivery apps, right? If you are installing Swiggy, for example, right? You would want to see things which are relevant to you or the things that you would like to eat. You would want the app to predict that for you, right? So you like the user expects the platform to show relevant content. Secondly, most often than not, what we have seen is like even on the music side and on the extreme side is that users are lazy. They do not want to search a lot of things. They want to have a laid back experience, and this problem is much bigger in music side because there you have different intents at different times. You want to listen to probably like party music on a Friday night, but like on Saturday mornings you would want to listen to bhajans, right? So the intent changes really fast in the music space. However, in the video space, the intent doesn't change so fast. So generally users are lazy. So that is a problem for us when we are getting a new user. Then they don't want to spend a lot of time on the sign up process, etc. They don't want to give out any personal information, right? This is a common theme right now across the whole ecosystem, right? So we cannot have an onboarding flow where we ask like tons and tons of questions or ask them give me 5 things that you like, etc., right? So we can't do that. From a streaming platform perspective, right? What is cold start for us? So limited information. Landing curation, if not targeted, results in low engagement, right? So I don't want to lose out on users who come onto the app but do not stream, and rather they bounce off, right? So that's a problem for overall retention, activation, and obviously subscription as well. Especially for extreme, because we are an OTT aggregator, we have different kind of languages also, right? So prioritizing the right language content at the right time for the right user base is important. And at last, there are content which are mature in theme, right? So for a new user, I want to have specific set of information that helps me identify that I should not probably have such content on the landing experience of the user, and it could well be images as well, right? So with that context, I'm not going to talk about a lot of recommendation systems because that's not the agenda, but I've just put out like a brief summary of different models which are available, right? I mean, popularity based is something which is very generic. It could be manually curated also. Content based systems are heavily dependent on what Bharat was presenting about metadata, right? So if you do not have metadata, you cannot create a content based recommender. And then the third option is basically collaborative, where you learn from user to user interactions or item to item similarity, right? For example, if a user has already watched, both the users have watched the same content. So if the third content is watched by, let's say, person A, I can probably recommend that content to person B. So at scale, basically these are the top ways in which recommendation system works. Obviously, deep learning, etc., has also evolved over time. So there are more ways, but generically, I think these three are the major types. Most of the OTT platforms actually have certain versions of these or ensembles of these, right? Because in certain scenarios, this model will be better, will give us better results compared to a content-based model. And in some cases, right, the content-based model gives me better results. And the different use cases also in terms of from a user perspective, right? So if, for example, if I talk about a product where I say, because you have watched, let's say, ABC, right? Then that use case probably talks more about the content-based similarity, right? But if I am just creating a product where I say that, these are the 10 titles which are recommended for you, then probably I would look at collaborative filtering and some aspects of content-based filtering so as to keep the theme of what the user wants, aligned with the recommendations. So, what are the features that are available for us as a platform to probably create a best possible environment when a new user specifically is coming onto the app? So in terms of user features, obviously demographic is there, device information is there. Campaign attribute is a unique thing because most of our acquisitions and some of our acquisitions are paid, right? So think of it like you see an ad on Facebook that Shark Tank is going to be streamed on Airtel Extreme, please come and watch it, or land onto the platform, right? So I have that information that a user was interested in that title, hence he clicked on it and install the app, right? So that information is very critical from a cold start perspective because that'll probably be the best possible intent for the user, right? So campaign attributes, and then like Facebook was one example, but you can obviously run ads everywhere now. So campaign attributes is one key which impacts the cold start experience. The second is the app onboarding process. Now in the music space, generally the app onboarding steps are like the process is generally two-step. You can select languages, and then basis the languages that you have selected, I can ask you to select your top artists, right? So in music I get more information compared to video, because in video generally what apps do, they just ask you for language, right? So and language is very broad. I do not know about what genre the user wants, whether they want to stream new movies or old movies, or any actor preferences, etc. So I do not know any of that right now. So app onboarding generally can be divided into 3 steps: language selection, subscription, right? So because we are an OTT aggregator, we sell individual subscriptions and then an overall subscription also. So basis what the user has selected, and there is very less free content generally, right? So basis what the user has selected, my homepage curation like the experience is going to be different. For example, if I have unlocked Sony Live and Lionsgate, then my experience is going to be different to what I've maybe if I have unlocked Hoi Choi or something else, right? So those are the 3 parameters there. Next is interaction. This is important because once you have come onto the homepage at this step, right? Now, what are the different things that I can look at from a user interaction perspective, and these interactions have to be consumed in a real-time manner for us to even make decisions, because in the music space, the intent, as I said, changes really fast. So understanding the intent in real time is important. However, in the video space, the intent doesn't change so fast. So maybe if we do not have a real time pipeline to compute all of this in an online model, even like a D-1 approach works, right? So in the interaction section, we have information on if the user is searching something, if they have watched any trailers, any watch list that they've already done. Visual skip is really interesting because we always talk about the positive side of it, like what is the user's dominant language, significant language, or what is the top genres of a user, but we do not spend so much time on what the user does not like, right? So visual skip as a concept is also really important because with streaming platform you scroll a lot, right? So with every scroll you're actually seeing something and you're not having that affinity to click on it or watch it or even like it, for example, right? So this whole concept of visual skip or anti-persona is very important from a cold start perspective because that gives me good information in terms of what I should not show to the user, or probably like until I have good interaction information available from the user, I can use these indicators to figure out like these are things that I should not show. So anti-persona in my, like the way I was talking about it was more in terms of like, as a user individually, what are the things that you do not like, right? I showed you 10 things and you did not have any affinity towards those 10 things. So the next time when you come into the session, I will use that information to probably curate better, right? So it has nothing to do with user to user or that kind of similarity right now. Okay. The last item is feedback mechanisms. Now, from an experience perspective, there are different bits and pieces that we can do, right? So after you've watched the content, we can ask you whether you liked it or not. A lot of music apps do it, like after you've scrolled the whole home page, certain apps actually have a button to say refresh the home page for me. Why do they do that, right? Because you have scrolled through the whole catalog and you've not liked anything, right? So they've given you an option or like some sort of feedback mechanism to tell the platform that I want something else. In the music space, this is slightly nuanced because in the music space you have different ways of having feedback. Like if you're not if you're not streaming the whole song together, right? So generally, as an industry standard, the way we make payouts are also on 30-second streams. So if a user has not even streamed 30 seconds, then they did not probably like the content. So, but in the video side, you have different types of content, right? So some of it is short videos, some of it is TV shows, movies, right? So that threshold is also different for different content type. The last, not the last, but the second last is platform features. Now, as an overall platform, given we have good amount of users using it on a daily basis, there's certain things that I can always do, right? These are fail-safe measures for me from a platform perspective. Now, at a city level, I know what are the top trending searches, right? So why is this trending search important? Because it inherently brings in what kind of users are there in a city or in a specific location, right? So generally with diverse language catalogs, this kind of works better because you kind of give options, like especially like in South India you will have probably titles which are not non-Hindi, which are trending or being searched, right, compared to North India. So having this as a product kind of helps boost that initial activation for the user. Obviously popular titles also we can look at from a perspective of location, also time of day, right? Certain content are most streamed during the night time and not in the daytime, right? So we have seen that trend also. So time of the day as a feature is also very important. And obviously there is a bit like manual curation layer also, right? So we have an editorial team which kind of brings in all the human layer of intelligence also in terms of what should be shown to the users from this segment. what are the top titles from this language, from this content partner, etc. So that is also there. The ecosystem, as I said, like item similarity, user similarity, we have collaborative filtering also, and manual curation. So for all of this to work in a optimal manner, obviously you need some amount of data, and that is how we are trying to solve it. So real-time computational pipeline, generally for two things, visual skips and trending searches. Why? Because visual skip is very much like in the session thing, right? So if you're logging in into the session just after you've, like in 15 minutes, you would want to have that feedback into the platform, right? Versus trending searches, because it varies with time of the day, right? So you want to have a real-time computational pipeline or a feedback loop between a lot of these features so that we are able to capture it at the right time. Two interesting thing outside this is content artwork. Some of it was touched upon by Bharat also. So content artwork plays a very massive piece in terms of converting a title to be consumed, right? So what we have seen is Vernac, for example, having the right artwork for Vernac users, and probably, like for example, if there is a Bengali title, writing it in actual Bengali leads to more interaction than compared to just putting it in English. And that is why, like, if you see a lot of apps in the onboarding funnel, when they give you to select languages, actually put it in Vernac, right? So that the relatability is there. So Vernac is one angle in the content artwork place, but also looking at what are the different ways, right? So generically we get one image from a partner, right? So how can we evolve by looking at and generating more images which are new? So the freshness aspect is also very key. So the same content can bring in more clicks and interest if you have a better or a new artwork for it, right? So content artwork plays a very big role. And design interventions, as I said, like creating the right feedback mechanisms, having the right features, asking the right questions to the user at the right time, probably sending nudges to see whether the user is interacting or not is also important. So basis all of that, I've created a sample case study, which is like a user journey in terms of what happens when they install the app and so on and so forth. So obviously the first step, app install. Second step, onboarding, will ask for generally language preferences, and the other attributes will probably derive. So at the third step on the homepage landing, what are the things that I could do, right? Obviously top 10 on the platform, basis language and location and time of the day is known to me. So I can create different rails and collections basis this data. Top trending genres at the same time, trending searches, campaign info, as I initially said, and there is this editorial manual curation also. Interaction is like after the initial homepage landing experience, we then look into the interaction bit, because at this point we do not have any, like the user has not interacted, right? So after that we look at whatever the user has done in terms of search, watch list, continue watching, or even like visual skips there, right? And then kind of the reco kicks in, right? Because then we have certain amount of information about the user in terms of what they want. So even at this step, the reco is not optimal because we have still limited information, but this will keep on becoming better as the user interacts or consumes more content from the app, right? One sub step out of this from 3 to 4 is, if a user did not like what we showed initially on the homepage, they would probably bounce off, right? And they do not come back. So how do we ensure that they come back, right? So we need to ensure that we are having the win back campaigns also run at the same time in a more personalized manner, because you have to bring that new user back to your platform to give you some interactions so that you can do a better job in terms of recommendations for that user, right? So with that, I'll probably end this session. Try to keep it non-tech, because the first 2 sessions were really tech heavy. So the intention here was to keep the focus on user problems, And probably from a platform perspective, what are the different ways in which we can tackle it? Cold start is a problem which is very nuanced. Everyone faces it across industries, and generally there is no right answer to this problem. And obviously there are different ways in which different people and different teams have solved it. But at Winken Extreme, we have done it in a way where certain bits are rule based and certain bits are where the ML kicks in.